Hi, this is DEVANNY PINN.
Hello.
Connect with you finally.
Hello, Devany. How are you?
Oh, doing good.
Well, and you should be doing good. The film is out. Everyone can see it. It is fantastic. I love this film. I've already watched it twice. I will watch it again. But something really incredible with this film is you shot this while you were pregnant. I'm curious as to, how far along were you? I mean, we get to see a bare pregnant belly there, but this is amazing that you would put yourself out there pregnant as you were to film Frost. Absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I was 6 months pregnant when we shot, and then in 9 months when we did the pickup, and then she was like a month old when we did a little insert for her. We were like almost done with post.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that begs the question then. How emotional was this for you to do this particular script with what Abby is going through, and you are pregnant while you're filming?
I'm really glad to talk to you. I want to say, just before we get started, you were the only woman who was willing to interview me.
Are you serious?
I am completely serious, and I just felt like you should know that. I'm not sure why it is exactly, because we've been doing a press tour for a couple of weeks now. I've done probably 30 to 40 interviews now, and we've had a bunch of women who have covered this, and you were the only one who would talk to me. And I have a lot of topics on this that I really, I wanted to address, including the emotional and physical toll of being pregnant doing that. And bless them, the guys have been really responsive as far as letting me talk, but I don't think they really understand what that means. And so I'm really glad to talk to you.
Oh, well, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, just on paper, you can see it was a pretty intense movie.
Oh, my God. Well, I've watched it twice now.
Oh, well, thank you. So you made it through. I had a hard time watching it. Normally when I produce, I micromanage every aspect of it, especially in post. I'm very protective of the cut. I could not watch this one. It was too stressful for me,
Yeah.
so I actually saw it for the first time at the premiere last week. Yes, and I'm a horror chick, full force. I like the worst of it, the most intense, the most disturbing, and I was a little hesitant to do this story, but we were like in the height of COVID, and my EP, James Cullen Bressack, he was trying to put deals together. We were on lockdowns, and we're like, how can we do a contained movie? And Cleopatra was willing to put together this film, and they wanted something that was based on a true story. So he was like kind of scouring the internet for articles that would make an interesting movie, and he just texted to me and was like, "You down?" And so I read the article, and I was like very, very torn because the horror chick in me was like, yeah, this is a great story, we should definitely tell it. And then for the first time ever, there was this mom side of me that was like, what are you doing? No. So I felt very conflicted from day one. So I thought about it a little bit, and ultimately it was like, I really wanted to push myself. I like anything that gets me out of my comfort zone and pushes me as a performer. And so it was like, all right, I'm going to tackle it. Let's do it. I didn't know, by the time we actually, they put the deal together and we actually shot, I was 6 months pregnant. I didn't realize what that was going to mean until I was there in it. And anyone who's been pregnant knows just what a physical and emotional toll that is anyway. and I was, I was doing pregnancy during COVID, where, with lots of isolation, when you're pregnant, there's like moms groups you can have, there's, yoga, there's activity, you go for walks, whatever. There's lots of stuff to do, and with us, it was just, my little generation of COVID moms, we were just sitting around. And so I was looking for something to kind of take my mind off of it and move time along a little bit. So this seemed like a good thing to do. But when we got to actually shooting it, I was not aware of the physical and emotional tolls it was going to take. It really kind of messed with me, to be completely honest. My emotions were all over the place anyway. Like, we were doing scenes at the beginning where it's Vernon and I, and we're happy and, like, rekindling. It's supposed to be like a light moment in the film, which the film definitely needs because it's a dark film.
And you start crying.
And, I was like fine one second. The next second I was like crying. The next second I needed a brownie. I mean, it was a mess.
Oh. But,
And so that was a mess already. But then, my specialty in horror movies is, like, I do very physical roles. I like torture movies and things of that sort. And so I was excited to kind of get into diving into this more physical part of the movie. But I would start to get into my thing as an actor and really physically perform it. And then I would feel the baby start to stress.
Oh.
And it would take me out of it. So I would start to get, like, really... hyperventilating or whatever, or portraying, starting to have the dropping temperatures and starting to slowly freeze, and she, like, her heart rate, or she would start ticking around, and I would come out of it because I'm like, oh my gosh, is the baby actually okay?
Yeah.
And so it was a constant checks and balances through filming of, me portraying what I needed to accurately, and then also taking care of not only myself, but this baby. And it was just, very back and forth, very stressful in itself. And then there were times when I wouldn't feel her move at all for like a half a day.
And then you freak out.
I was freaking out, yes, and not for the right reasons and not in the right way. So, and I have to turn that off to do it. And we had, we had those challenges, and then we had, these very emotional sequences that I had to portray. If you've ever been pregnant or your spouse has, you know that you're not supposed to really watch any birthing videos or really, like, dive into that until the time, because you traumatize yourself. But I needed to portray birth accurately. I didn't know what that was going to be like. So I waited till the lunch break we had right before shooting those scenes, and I just watched a bunch of videos on birthing. And then I came out totally traumatized. I was, like, trying to do these scenes, and then when we would cut, I was, like, had all these irrational thoughts, like, I don't need to give birth. I'll just stay pregnant forever. Like, we can make this happen. It'll be fun.
Oh, my God.
So it was just a whole crazy, wild shoot, even though it was a very contained movie. And then, ironically, I get asked a lot about the ending and how that was, but by the time we got to the finale, which arguably is the most, disturbing content in the film,
True.
And also, the source of our true crime elements, at that point, I was really able to draw a very firm line as far as what was acting and what was reality. Because up until that point in the shoot, a lot of it had crossed over to each other. A lot of the emotions, the journey, the struggles, those were real on screen and in my real life. And so it was hard to kind of draw that line between fantasy and reality. But when it came to the finale, I was actually relieved because I knew where that line was. So I was able to just focus and do my thing as an actor. And so that, ironically, was one of the easier elements to do. But I'm glad I did the challenge. I'm glad, we were able to all pull it off. But I don't know that I would do it again.
Well, and it's interesting because the way the film plays out is when we get to that finale, it's open to interpretation as to whether this is really, it's one of those, is it live or is it Memorex moments?
I love that you recognize that that's not something that a lot of people have picked
No,
up on.
it's
People kind of just got sucked into the imagery, and then that was it, and it just stayed with them. No one really has asked us about whether it actually happened or not.
That's open. That's totally open to interpretation. Because,
Yes, and that
okay,
was the intention. Yes.
you're in a car, you've been in an accident, you've been out there freezing for a couple nights.
Yep.
There's snow, the windows are broken out, so snow's coming in. Okay, the battery's dead in the car, you can't even turn the heater on. So obviously, the mind starts playing tricks. So,
Yes.
is it live? Is it Memorex? Is this a hallucination? What is this? Is Abby dead?
And that's kind of, and it's almost throwaway in the beginning of the film, but we did have Vernon's character go through the symptoms of hypothermia.
Yes.
So the audience would kind of know this journey that would potentially go on. So by the time the finale does come around, you see that she is hallucinating. So wanted the audience to kind of decide, is this actually happening, or is this more hallucination from the hypothermia?
I love that part that it was open to interpretation.
I love that you recognized it, because most people have not picked up on that. So it's really fun that you were able to.
One of the issues with most people is that they're not looking at the metaphor. They're not looking at really the emotional undercurrent of the film.
Yes.
And this is where Brandon and his DP, Kelton Jones, this is where they really...
It's phenomenal.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God. Because this film rises and falls on the visual grammar.
Yes.
Because how long can you just look at somebody in a car?
That was the first thing that we talked about. I was like, look, guys, I'm great and all,
but how many angles can we come up with?
You can't do it. It has to be, there has to be people who understand the ups and downs and create visual interest within just a small bit. And that just really goes to show the talent of this team.
Yeah.
That they were able to, for the majority of it, keep it interesting and keep it moving forward with not much going on and not much movement for an hour and a half. So, that's the thing is, even though we had a skeleton team for COVID sake, it really was exceptional few people who were on this, people who had done no budget and understood that, and people who have done blockbusters. I mean, Kelton worked on Passion of the Christ.
Yes.
So it really all came together, and that they really understood how to create big concepts, bigger visuals and interest on a contained element, contained budget, frankly.
And this is where the little details come in, really come into play, and the striking differentials between Abby and Grant in the house. And everybody is always, there's a jockeying for position. It's not until dad and daughter are in the car going on the fishing trip, they're on a level playing field. The camera is now looking at the two of them on a level playing field. But the binding, the connective tissue, the umbilical cord between Grant and Abby comes down to that little pink Hello Kitty tackle box. Because that is the connection of daddy and daughter.
That's the first moment, yes, where you see them connect on something and come together.
In the house, when she finds it, it's like, oh my God,
yes.
You still have it. And then that's very key in the car and in Abby's psychological focus.
Yes.
To stay grounded.
Becoming the tool for survival for her.
Yes. So those little things add so much. But by the same token, as I'm watching this film, and I'm just thinking, oh my God, she's pregnant. She is in that car. There's a log in there. She cannot move. This isn't like a 1970 Cadillac that's huge and you got bench seats so you can move and you can roll around.
Right.
These are bucket seats.
That was one of the crew members' Prius, and the sticks were real. That was a real tree. I crawled through those. Were all. I actually got tore up. Those are all. Everything was. We try to keep it as real as possible because when you're going to tell a story like this, it. You have to understand the tone, and the tone is really it's grounded in reality. So we tried to keep as many of those elements as we could.
And it definitely works, but boy, I felt so sorry for you watching this film. It's like, how in the hell did you manage to get in the back seat? That's the first thing, when you finally get into the back seat, I'm like, how the hell did she do that?
It took, full disclosure, it took a couple of tries.
I was going to say.
I couldn't fit.
No!
No. We did kind of a couple different angles and a couple different ways, and then I had to actually get back there and then do the last part of the fall because I was afraid of really doing that fall and then hurting the baby.
Yeah.
So it actually is done in two pieces, but again, I had to cut through all the sticks and all the props and the actual fishing stuff that we had in there. It was a mess. They hurt, yes, they do, and it was.
I mean, it's a testament to your dedication as an actor, as a producer, and as a storyteller to go to these lengths, Devany. Because I'm very familiar with your work. I've seen so many of your films, Lilith,
thank you so much.
Lilith, Hollow Point,
Yeah,
but I'm so familiar with your work and a lot of what you've done, Bus Party to Hell. I like Bus Party to Hell, okay?
I do too. I like exploitation. I try to find, I try to do something in every subgenre because, what people like varies. And so I love horror fans and movie fans. And so when they say, hey, what should I watch? I want to be able to ask, what they like and then have, something to send to them. So I wanted to do exploitation. I did Nude Nuns with Big Guns years ago, and I wanted something a little more recent. So Rob Konevsky, who's the director of that, I think does exploitation better than anybody. So when I heard they were doing that, I called them up and I was like, I got to get up in here. And so they wrote that part for me and Tara in the beginning, and I had a blast. I had so much fun on that.
Because you did that did that one right around the same time as you did Piranha 3D.
Yes, back in the day, yes.
Back in the day.
That was, I actually booked that for I don't have it anymore, but through a modeling agent. I was like, wait a minute, they're doing the biggest cinematic massacre ever. I was like, me please. And so I came out literally just to do a little cameo, and the director actually pseudo knew who I was. I was just starting to be kind of a name in the horror world at that point. And he actually bumped me up and made me one of the Wild Wild Girls and gave me a bunch of spots throughout the massacre to die, and they really took good care of me. I had so much fun filming that. The pyrotechnics on that, the underwater cinematography, it was just fascinating. Yeah. Really cool.
And of course then, just saw you again in July of The Devil, which, Kelton directed it, and Vernon's in it, gets to play a nice priest.
We had actually all just shot together on Frost, and then the following month, Kelton was going to be doing The Devil, so he was awesome. We had so much fun together on Frost, so he wrote a little spot in for Vernon and I to come back and play on his movie, and I just love Kelton and his team. They're wonderful people.
Of The Devil, I was enthralled with, because not only is Vernon in it playing a priest, which is so against type, which is one of the great things about now at this point in his career, because he's picking these films. We don't expect him to be a sympathetic dad. We don't expect him to be a priest. He has a kids movie coming out where he's Santa Claus.
Which is actually great. I think he's going to do really well.
He is such a sweetheart.
He's amazing. We used to do conventions together, and I'm really noisy, so I was bugging him, and eventually we became friends, and we started putting our tables together at signings, and he kind of showed me the works for that, and we've done a ton of movies together at this point. He's so talented, and I love that you're bringing him up on this, because I feel like because he does have some iconic roles, he kind of gets typecast or just thrown in a cameo here and there because he's Vernon, and that was one of the things with this movie. It was an opportunity for him to play against type and really do some dramatic work. And I wasn't sure how he'd feel about it since it was such a contained movie. And he was so excited to do something different and meaty and really totally devoted to this movie. And I think he's phenomenal. And I
Yes.
think that more people will give him more to do because he's a really great actor.
He told me about Frost back in July. We were talking about Of the Devil. He goes, oh, wait till you see Frost.
He was proud, yeah, because
Very.
it was really a dramatic character, and he got to do some serious work in there. He cried through several of those scenes. It was so emotional for him. He really poured his heart and soul into that and took it very seriously, and I just really was in awe of his commitment. It was great.
To see Vernon in that movie, then see him in Frost, to see you in that, and then see you here, in comparison to all the work that you've done before, I'm so excited for you that you got to still maintain the physicality that you love in roles.
Yeah.
Albeit maybe a little tailored back than usual.
Yeah.
But good excuse for that. You truly are on the edge in this whole movie in that car. You had me gripping the arms of the chair as I'm watching you.
It's kind of stressful.
It's very stressful, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, is she going into labor? What's going to happen? I kept thinking that the tree branch was going to just go whack right through you.
My God, it almost, also, off camera, it actually almost did. That stupid tree. We had a goodbye party for that tree trunk because it was such a mess. I hated that thing.
It served you well.
It did. And it was, obviously a necessary element for the film.
As was the wolf.
Yes. Shadow.
Shadow, one of my favorite parts of the film. I have to say, though, he's trained very well. So menacing trying to lunge through the driver's side window.
Shadow is the most professional actor on that set, by far. And probably the most prolific. He's got a long film and television resume, including being one of the wolves from Game of Thrones.
I heard that.
Yeah.
So did he have
I
a
was
diva?
worried.
Did he have a diva complex?
He was so chill. He hung out with the little wolf pack. We filmed on the animal ranch sanctuary where he lives, along with a lot of other wild animals who've been rescued and now contribute to film and television.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, he and his whole wolf pack are performers, but he's the most veteran of the group, so that's why his trainer suggested that he get the part. And he was very, very sweet. It was almost like, puppy-like. And then, then they would trigger the growling, which is they would tie meat bones to the floor and bring him in to eat it and then take it away from him. And then he would go from cute little sweet puppy who would let you pet him and hang out to vicious wild animal instantly.
Yeah,
it
well,
was really crazy to watch. So that's how we got those growling shots in there. And then his trainers said that he could learn pretty much any skill, but they would need about a week of training him to do the jump up into the window and attacking me. And our production had enough money in the budget to train him for half of one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that happened, and they were like, well, we really need a week, and the producers were like, nope, that's what we got. So he trained for a few hours to jump through the car and eat me, and then all the crew in this big green screen studio stood on one far away end of it, and then they told me to get in the car and, let the wolf loose.
Oh, my God.
So, again, I would love to claim great acting in that scene, but that was really just me wondering if he was going to stick to the script or actually try to eat me. He was a pro. He hit his mark every single time. He got different angles. We shot him for 2 hours. Almost all of it was usable footage. He's
Wow.
absolutely professional. And I would love to work with him again. Great job, Shadow.
I'm curious, because of the fact that you're also a producer on this, obviously you are thinking about getting a shot. In addition to acting, I'm sure it is running through your mind, getting a shot how much money it's costing. If this doesn't work, can we afford to do this? Like, okay, we could only afford to train Shadow for half a day.
I was a creative producer, so I didn't I didn't commission the deal or do the script or a lot of the budget or anything of that sort. It just was making sure, like on the day-to-day, that we got the footage that was needed for the film. So it was very conflicted because so much of the movie is me, and usually when I produce and act, I act in a much smaller role so I can juggle the roles more effectively. And in this, there was really no downtime because so much of the film was just me.
Yeah.
So, I felt an extra responsibility to make sure we did get the shots, that the shots were convincing, that we had all the pieces we needed at all times. And so, there was my physical and emotional limitations, and then there was also the producer in me who was like, we need another angle, or we need, this to happen one more time, or, so same thing with the wolf. It was very, on one hand terrified, on the other hand really excited because I've always wanted to work with live animals, and I love wolves. I think they're beautiful. And on the flip side, the whole thing was really expensive, and it was really about
Oh my God!
So it was a lot. Yeah, but ultimately, again, I should not have worried. The team was super professional, and the wolf was phenomenal performer, and I think we got absolutely what we needed and then some.
I have to ask you probably one of the dumbest questions you will ever be asked. But everybody knows that pregnant women have to pee all the time.
Yes.
You're in this car, wedged in there.
Yep.
How challenging was this experience of having to get out, to go pee, and then get back in?
Miserable. So frustrating. Like, the producer in me was frustrated at the pregnancy in me because it was like, we don't have time to pee again. And it's such a thing. It's like, it sounds like a joke, but, all of the organs moving around and the weight of the baby and the amniotic fluid, it just puts so much pressure on your bladder. There's no room in there. So you just constantly have to go because there's nowhere else for it to hang out. So there's not really like, I have to pee, I'm going to hold it till the next scene. There just isn't.
You can't.
Get deep into it, and you got to go. So we actually factored that in. So we shot all the woods in the scene for the car. We actually staged that wooded area right in front of the house that we filmed at the beginning.
Oh, good.
Yes. Had it been that I wasn't actually pregnant, there was a lot of really beautiful, picturesque locations that, here in the mountains that we wanted to use. But the reality of it was we needed a contained setting nearby resources, so that way, because we did shoot in hail. We had hail, golf-ball-sized hail at one point. We had real snowstorms, and so everyone being out in those elements, we needed to be able to run inside and defrost real quick. And then I needed constantly to have to pee, and we had to have food and things for the crew. So just logistics of it made more sense to have it in a contained, quote unquote, set in the yard there. That's what we did.
And obviously, on low budget, no budget, micro budget, you weren't going to be able to afford a fleet of porta potties.
No, and nor would I want to, honestly.
No.
I've done that. And I've done, there's some trailers, I'm sure some honey wagon trailers, for those who are listening, that are really nice. Like, I went to an event a few days ago for Hocus Pocus, the new one, and Disney put it on. And they had the nicest mobile bathroom I've ever been in my life. I would like living here. It was gorgeous. And so, if you can afford to do that, then it makes sense. But the just little casual ones that you rent for smaller productions are not exactly pleasant.
Yeah.
So I've done the bear shoot in the woods, and I've done the created in the studio, which we did just for one day on this scene, on this movie. And then I just realized, I was like, why are we all going to bring the trailers to the woods when we have, the set itself and the house that we shot at are actually part of a camp.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so just outside of LA, they had an entire a campground with a variety of huts, little houses, and cabins. So the crew and cast were able to stay on site of this. We just rented out the entire camp for the week. And then we had full access to, you know, private roads and different sections of woods. And it all worked. And it was, you know, a benefit for a nonprofit, so everybody won. And I got to be comfortable.
Yay! That's the important part. I guarantee you nobody will ever ask you that.
Yeah.
No one will ever ask you that question ever again in your career. I'm sure.
But I love that because it's a legitimate, serious question and concern, and I definitely had it, and it definitely came up a lot through filming. But again, my team, my poor production designer, Miranda, she's such a trooper. I've worked with her on a bunch of films now, so she knew to take care of me. She also the registered nurse. That worked out really well.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yes. So she rigged the trees and the glass in the window and a bunch of things to be quickly reset, so she was able to get in and out real quickly to get me to pee. And
oh, good. Well, I've got one last question for you, madam.
Sure.
What is it about horror that keeps bringing you back to horror? What is the appeal of horror films?
That's a great question. So for me, I enjoy it. I've dabbled a little bit in other genres, but I am absolutely a horror girl. I love it. It is the most fun to film, personally, because there are no limitations. You have extreme circumstances, which I think for characters is fascinating because you really learn who someone is in a life or death situation. In extreme circumstances, people show their true colors. I think that as a foundation for character study is fascinating and fun to portray. There's also no limitations as far as reality. You know, you could be in any time, place, land, fantasy, fictional, true. There's zombies, there's vampires, there's mummies, there's, you know, literally, I've played Satan. There's literally no limitations to who and what you can be. I've done, you know, I played an alien. And so there, as an actor, it's just endless possibilities, lots of makeup and effects and stunts, which I think are fascinating and so much fun to play with. And beyond that, people who make horror, you know, our business is exactly that. It's the entertainment business. So a lot of it could be very 9 to 5. You do bigger shows, you do studio movies. It's very much a job. It's very cold. It's very impersonal. It's you clock in, you clock out, you do your time. But in horror, even the bigger stuff, but truly the independent stuff, it's you have people from all walks of life, all different aspects of the industry. You put them in a horror film setting, making it, they get giddy, they get passionate, they get creative. People who create horror are doing the work because they love it, because they're artists, and they want to be there, and they want to create, and they're having fun doing it. Something that I think can get lost otherwise. So that's the reason I love making it. As far as choosing it as a fan, I think everybody has good and bad in them, and horror is a healthy place for you to put the darkness.
Yes.
Everybody needs horror. They need that release. It's cathartic. And so, you know, it can almost be therapeutic to watch a horror movie, let alone get to be part of one. And I just love everything about it.
I love watching you in them. I've seen so
thanks,
many
Lori.
of the ones you've done. I've always had a great fondness for horror.
I love that. Absolutely love it. Well, you know, you just get the bug. You get bitten by it. You know, it's fun.
And I know your next film coming up that Brandon directed you in, Battle for Saipan, comes out in a few weeks.
Yes, it does. So, I mean, I guess if you're listening to this, it's a little bit more in the future. But today, which we're talking, the trailer came out this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we just debuted that. So it's the beginning of the buzz for Battle Saipan, and I had a little part in that. It's not exactly my jam. It's a World War II epic.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely Brandon Slagle's. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's possibly his best film. And I just had to be a little piece of that. I had to jump in there because the team was absolutely incredible, and the story is also inspired by a true story. from that era, and I'm just fascinated by what they were able to accomplish with this. It's a beautiful movie with epic performances from Casper Van Dien, Jess Ahey, and Louis Mandylor, and that comes out theatrically from Paramount on November 25th, and on VOD on the 29th. So I think everyone will check it out. And I hope you'll have us back to chat that one more as it gets closer.
I can't wait for that. And Brandon already promised that we're going to interview for that one when it comes after I see it.
Phenomenal, yes, absolutely.
Devanny, thank you so much. This has been so much fun getting to talk to both of you today, but especially you.
I'm really glad we got to chat more. It's very refreshing to speak to a woman about, the challenges of pregnancy. And I just want to give a quick shout out regarding anyone who's listening to this. I think it's really important to mention that this, even though we did spoiler free, the finale really deals with some taboo topics that I think need more attention: postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis.
Yeah.
And it's something that we really have not had out in the mainstream, that a lot of women are struggling with and suffering from. And, when left unsaid, you have, in extreme situations, horrific cases like the one this story is based on. So I encourage everyone to read up on it, become educated on it, and look out for the warning signs of it, so we can not have any more true stories like Frost.
Yeah, and don't go out into the woods in a snowstorm when you're 7 months pregnant or 9 months pregnant.
Yes, be careful driving, everybody.
This is a cautionary tale. I think that's safe to say. A cautionary tale.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh.
Thank you so much for watching it and for having me on. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Anytime.
Please, I would love it. I welcome any and all reviews and opportunities to speak to you. You've been just wonderful.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.